I mean, you get nervous here and there when it's going.
Not easy, but with a big lead, you have to stay cautious. The pressure builds, but I'm just so happy to be here. The 10,000 Filipino fans weren't there just to see a tennis match. They came to witness history, and before a single ball was hit, they achieved something no one saw coming. Karolina Muchova, riding high from her Qatar Open win, stepped onto the court as the undisputed favorite. World number 14 against world number 29, the veteran versus the prodigy. Czech precision against Filipino heart. She had dismantled Eala 6-love 6-2 in exactly 60 minutes. A scoreline so punishing it should have silenced any stadium. But this was no ordinary crowd. After that final point, as Muchova stood with her racket, surrounded by thousands of heartbroken but still roaring Filipino supporters, she felt a shock she never anticipated, and in her post-match interview, she couldn't conceal it. Alex Ayala had already lost the match, but her fans had won the arena. If you live for moments like these, subscribe now because we find the stories everyone else misses. So what exactly did 10,000 Filipino fans do that shook the champion? It starts with Muchova's own words carefully chosen in that interview. They tell you everything about the pressure cooker she had just survived. It's never easy. Even when you're winning, your mind is racing. You have to stay focused and keep applying the pressure. Think about that. This is a player who just dominated 6-love 6-2. She never once dropped her serve. She converted all 5 of her break points. She hit 20 winners against just 11 unforced errors. By every metric, it was one of the most flawless victories of her season. And yet she told the Tennis Channel that it was a battle. Why? Because of the crowd. Because of the storm of energy in those stands from the first serve to the last. Here's the detail that set this crowd apart from any other in the sport. Most fan bases go quiet when their player gets annihilated in 22 minutes. They get restless. They give the scoreboard that look. The one that says this is about to get painful, not these fans. When Eala lost the first set 6-love, the Filipino faithful didn't even flinch. When Muchova broke serve immediately to build a 4-love lead, threatening a rout not seen in 4 years, the chants grew louder. The roar was constant. "Let's go, Alex," echoed again and again from a sea of Philippine flags and supporters who had flown to Miami just for this moment. When Eala finally held serve to get on the board at love 4, she let out a cry of defiance. The stadium absolutely exploded. For a second, it felt like she'd won a major title, not just avoided a total blowout. That was the raw power those fans brought into the stadium that night. And Muchova felt the weight of every single second. She later confessed that even with a massive lead, she had to fight to keep her concentration. She had to maintain focus, to fight the roar disrupting her game. A player of this level, a 2023 French Open finalist and 2-time US Open semi-finalist, having to consciously block out the sheer energy of a crowd while dominating, reveals the incredible force of those Filipino fans. To grasp why this match impacted Muchova so deeply, you first need to understand what Alex Ayala represents to Philippine sports. Star Alex Ayala arrives at the tennis paradise of Indian Wells. The stands have been full for players like Alex Ayala, seeing the Filipino faithful, the Brazilian fans. And why this crowd was never going to be quiet. Eala is 20. Raised in Quezon City, she left for Spain at 13 for the Rafael Nadal Academy, honing her craft for years while her homeland waited. The Philippines is a country where sports conversation is ruled by basketball and boxing. Tennis was on the fringe. It didn't create international stars until Eala erupted at the 2025 Miami Open. She entered as a wildcard, ranked 140th, then eliminated 3 Grand Slam champions, Madison Keys and Iga Świątek, in straight sets, making a semi-final run no Filipino had ever made. That performance didn't just alter her ranking, it redefined the nation's connection to a sport. When the 2026 Miami Open began, Eala held the number 29 spot, a career peak, and her supporters had become a force the WTA had truly never encountered before. At the 2026 Australian Open, only 2 months prior, her court was packed beyond capacity with hundreds left outside. Her opponent, Alicia Parks, flat out admitted the crowd dismantled her in the first set, which she lost 6-0. Online forums, television commentators, and her peers all began echoing the same sentiment. The Filipino fans were transforming neutral ground into a home court advantage no matter where she was. Miami was different merely because of its size. Hard Rock Stadium had room, and South Florida's Filipino-American community, among the country's largest, turned out in force, making it feel less like a match and more like a summit. Now this is where the narrative takes the turn that specifically rattled Muchova. Eala didn't just lose, she was demolished. The Czech Curse, a term coined by Philippine sports media, worsened to a grim 0-13. 13 times she'd faced Czech opponents since going pro in 2020, not one victory. And this wasn't a narrow defeat you could explain away. It was a complete masterclass from Muchova, a display where the chasm in experience was simply too vast to overcome that night. Eala herself didn't shy away from the truth. Her post-match press conference was sharp and unwavering. I definitely wasn't at my best, but her performance was a huge part of that. I could have handled details better. She made no excuses about the injury tape on her left thigh. No deflection, just pure, honest reflection from a 20-year-old dismantled on the court that had made her famous just 12 months before. And then, she turned to her home country speaking in Tagalog. The message, "I'm happy, not disappointed. Thank you, my fellow Filipinos. The fight goes on and I'll see you in Europe." After a brutal 6-0, 6-2 loss, those words hit differently. There were no boos, no frustration aimed her way. Instead, a wave of applause carried on long after she left the court. And right there, the story stopped being about tennis. Muchova was still on the court. She heard everything. And let's be clear, because this moment deserves the truth. Muchova didn't collapse at the net in tears. What unfolded was quieter and much more revealing. During her on-court interview, she clearly struggled to explain the feeling. She confessed to feeling nervous even though she won easily. She talked about how hard it was to keep her focus when the emotional energy in the stadium was that strong. And when she addressed the crowd, the fans whose hero had just lost, still cheering, still pouring out support, you could see her composure crack. This is an athlete who has shown emotion on court before. At the 2025 US Open, she got emotional mid-match seeing her ex in the stands. She's never been one to hide how she feels. So when this crowd, not even her own, fresh off watching their player get demolished, brought her to that edge, it said everything about the energy they bring. It's a kind of sportsmanship that rises above any rivalry, cheering your player through a crushing defeat without getting nasty, without making the atmosphere toxic for anyone, then holding that grace after the match. That is incredibly rare. Muchova felt it, and it clearly got to her. This moment was bigger than one match. Eala starts her clay season at the Linz Open in Austria on April 6th, her first WTA 500 event on that surface. The ranking damage from Miami is definitely real. She'll fall from number 29 to the mid-40s, unable to defend her points. But the cultural phenomenon is surging in the opposite direction. The WTA just launched the Philippine Women's Open in January 2026, the nation's first ever WTA event, sparked entirely by the buzz Eala created. The finals sold out before she had even entered the tournament. Coco Gauff, after beating Eala in Dubai, made sure to acknowledge her opponent's passionate fans. To be specific, her opponents are noticing. Tournament directors notice. The WTA itself has taken notice. The 10,000 Filipino fans in Miami did more than just accept a loss. They showed one of the world's elite players what unconditional loyalty in sports actually looks like. Muchova won the match. But those fans want something far greater. Her Czech opponent couldn't ignore the raw emotion. In just 60 minutes, Alex Ayala's match was over. But she left Miami with something rankings can't measure, a fanbase the whole sport now fears. That immense support brought her to tears. Moments like these prove the scoreboard tells only part of the tale. To get the other half of the story each week, subscribe now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss out and let us know, will Eala finally shatter the Czech Curse in 2026? We read every last one.